The significance of the second coming. It refers to the return of Christ after a time of great upheaval and disorder. What is Whitman's attitude towards the universe? In Whitman's belief, everything in the universe is made of atoms. What does the golden bird symbolizes to years? The golden bird symbolizes the liberated soul, which neither undergoes and change nor suffers from any conflict and confusion of which human beings are victims. What kind of husband does Yeats wish for his daughter? W.B. Yeats wishes for her daughter an aristocratic husband who would take her to a home where life is traditional and lived according to the age-old customs, ceremonies, and values. What is horn of plenty? The horn of plenty is in ancient mythology refers to the horn of a goat represented as overflowing with flowers, fruit, and corn. Thus, it signifies plenty and prosperity. How does the poet describe the woods in the poem? Stopping by woods on a snowy event. The poet describes the woods as lovely, dark, and deep. Why does Auden call the lover faithless? Auden calls the lover faithless because he is a human being with necessary human imperfections, and as such he is bound to be inconstant in his love. What is intellectual disgrace? Intellectual disgrace refers to people's hatred of one another because of the hostile feelings and atmosphere created by ideological difference and conflicts. What sound does Henny hear from underneath his room? While writing in his room at the window, Henny hears the sounds of digging in the gravel underneath by his father with a spade. What does the girl in the poem Punishment symbolize? The girl in the poem Punishment symbolizes Ireland, as she, like Ireland, was murdered at the hand of a group of oppressors. What are stuffed fox and stale fern? The stuffed fox and stale fern refers to various articles of decoration in Aunt Jones' room where the poet is left alone. How does Thomas estimate his aunt? Anne Jones, Thomas' aunt, was an epitome of love and generosity which flowed out like the spring of water gushing out of a fountain. What does Whitman mean when he says that the hand of God is the promise of my own? He means that God is intrinsically a part of his own nature rather than separate to him. Who is Handra Han? Handra Han is a character that Yeats invented in the stories The Secret Rose and Stories of Raid Hanrahan. He was a country poet probably modeled on the Irish poet Eo Gohan Ruad O Suiliaban. What do woods symbolize in Frost poem? Wood symbolizes confusion and bewilderment of man. What does the lonely young man of 28 watch from her window? From the window of her room, the young woman of 28 watches 28 handsome young men bathing near the seashore. What does Yeats mean by Leduin body? Leda was the mother of Helen, the most beautiful woman of Greek mythology. Here, Lydian body refers to the beautiful figure of Maud Gonne, the poet's beloved, who resembles Leda or Helen in her beauty. What lesson does Auden provide in his poem In Praise of Limestone? Auden provides a lesson in his poem In Praise of Limestone, saying that one should accept the reality of life and face it boldly and not run after empty dreams, the escape provided by religion or romantic love. What does supernatural sympathy refer to? The phrase supernatural sympathy means the blessing of Venus, the goddess of love and beauty. This means the lover's carnal love is raised to a mystical height in which they feel as if they are communion with the supernatural being. Why is Darling Thomas unwilling to mourn the death of the child? Though the death of a child during an air raid is a fit occasion for an elegy, the poet is not willing to mourn the death of the child in the conventional manner, for it will demand the dignity of the child's death. What is the theme of Seamus Heaney's poem Funeral Rites? In the poem Funeral Rites, Heaney is desperately searching for a satisfactory burial for those who have been killed in the violence of Northern Ireland, and he also demands an end to the cycle of murders and massacre. What does the term croppies refer to? Croppies refers to the croppy boys who were so called because they cut their hair in the style of the peasants of the Industrial Revolution. What does the expression the inner dome of heaven had fallen mean? The shuttered eyes on the ground look like pieces of fallen winter sky. How does Darling Thomas estimate his aunt? Anne Jones, Thomas' aunt, was an epitome of love and generosity which followed out like the spring of water gushing out of a fountain. What is the theme of Song of Myself? In Song of Myself, Walt Whitman sings of himself, and in singing of himself, he sings of America herself. He gives us a panoramic view of the American scene and expresses those ideals and values which constitute Americanism. What is the meaning of the word Massey? The poet regards the modern word Massey as most important, for it signifies for him democracy, the concept of equality and brotherhood. What kind of poem is The Stolen Child? The Stolen Child is an escape lyric based on the common Irish superstition that fairies often steal human children and take them to the fairyland. What is the theme of the poem When You Were Old? Fleeting nature of love is the theme of the poem When You Were Old. How does the poet see present Ireland? The poet deplores the fact that romantic, rebellious Ireland has been replaced by a land of materialism and formalized religion at the present time. What is the theme of the poem? A prayer for my daughter. The poet's anxiety as to how to protect his infant child from the tide of hard times ahead and his prayer for her future prosperity and well-being constitute the theme of the poem A Prayer for My Daughter. What is lapis lazuli? Lapis lazuli is a semi-precious stone of light blue color used in ornamental and mosaic work. What kind of poem is Mowing? Mowing is a sonnet which reads like a lyric. What does Walt Whitman stands for in Mending Wall? The wall stands for barriers. What is the meaning of the expression spring is the mischief in me? The spring season has made the speaker mischievous and he wants to test his neighbor by suggesting to him views opposite to his own. What is the theme of the poem? Lullaby. Lullaby or Lay Your Sleeping Head, My Love of W. H. Auden deals with the theme of love, points out the faithlessness of lovers, and emphasizes the need of love between lovers, in spite of all their faithlessness, evils, and imperfections. What is the meaning of green age? By green age, the poet means boyhood or the youthful period of life. What is Whitman's nationality? Whitman is an American national poet. What is the grace symbolizes in Song of Myself? The spear of grass symbolizes the procreant power of nature, the creative urge that is at work through all nature. What kind of mystic is Whitman? Whitman is a mystic which transcendental strains. Who is Maud Gonne? Maud Gonne is an Irish revolutionist and had a relationship with W. Yeats. What is Horn of Plenty? The horn of plenty in ancient mythology refers to the horn of a goat represented as overflowing with flowers, fruit, and corn. Thus, it signifies plenty and prosperity. How did Zeus seduce Leda? Zeus seduced Leda in the form of a swan. What is Mary's conception of home? According to Mary, home is a place where one does not have to justify oneself as in the outside world, but where one is accepted lovingly for what one is. In other words, everyone needs at least one place of refuge where the demands of justice are tempered with a spirit of charity. What does the oven bird sing about? The oven bird lives in the middle of the forest, singing about the end of summer, a time when leaves are old and the blossoms no longer fall to the ground in showers. What is the full name of Auden? Weston Hugh Auden. What does Auden mean by Mad Ireland? The wrongs of Ireland. What does quicksand symbolize? Quicksand is the loose, watery sand which engulfs those who happen to walk over it. It is a symbol of destruction in nature. Who is the Tolant Man? The Tolant Man was the man who was sacrificed to the goddess of fertility in the early Iron Age and found preserved in a pet book at Tolant in Denmark in 1950. What is Bruegel's Icarus? Bruegel's Icarus refers to a painting by Pieter Bruegel, a landscape painter of Flanders. In this painting, a major portion is occupied by the figure of a stout ploughman, and in the distance is shown the tiny figure of Icarus, a boy falling into the sea. What does mowing symbolize in mowing? The word stands for the harmony of life. What are mule praises? The ants' relatives who are in pretentious mourning are mule praises. What does inner weather symbolize? The inner weather symbolizes the spiritual anguish, doubts, and conflicts by which the poet is torn and toasted. What is supernatural sympathy? The phrase supernatural sympathy means the blessings of Venus, the goddess of love and beauty. This means the lover's carnal love is raised to a mystical height in which they feel as if they are in communion with the supernatural being. Identify the lines. She was on land more than 100 years before we were her people. The lines are from Robert Frost's famous poem, The Gift Outright. What is the source of the title Out Out? The title Out Out has been taken from Shakespeare's Macbeth, in which Macbeth's soliloquies outdash, and in its incompleteness it suggests the many expressions that break the flow of sentence and verse. Whom do Leda and the swan represent? Leda and the mortal, who is the mother of Helen and Clytemnestra and the swan, as Jews are represented. Who is called a tomb poet? Dylan Thomas is called a tomb poet. Who is Oisin? Oisin was regarded in Eogend as the greatest poet of Ireland and is a warrior of the Fianna and the Oceanic or Fenian cycle of Irish mythology. What does Crooked Rose symbolize? Crooked Rose refers to Blake's poem, The Sick Rose, in which the rose is withered or dissuaded because it is eaten away by canker. What is Spiritus Mundi? Spiritus Mundi is a Latin term that means world spirit. According to Yeats, it is a universal memory and a muse that provides inspiration to the poet. What is Walt Whitman's idea of the immortality of the soul? Both time and life of the soul is endless. The body dies, but the soul is born again and again, and every birth adds to the richness and the variety of the soul in acquiring its wisdom and experience. Thus, the soul continues to rise higher and higher through the ages. Why did Whitman leave his school at the age of 11? He left his school to help out with household income. How did Whitman die in 1892? He had a massive heart attack resulting paralyzed him. After 2 months of his second heart attack, he died. What is the main theme of the poem Shield of Achilles? The condition of man in the post-war period forms the main theme of the Shield of Achilles. How many sections are there in the poem Song of Myself? There are 52 sections in Song of Myself. What is Robert Frost nationalism? Robert Frost was an American poet. Who is the Shakespeare? Who is the speaker in the poem after apple picking? The speaker is an apple picker. In lullaby, really a lullaby in the conventional sense of the term. Since the poem begins by addressing an adult lover, not a child as is usual in a lullaby, it is a non-traditional form of the lullaby. What are breeches? Breeches are trees with smooth, often white bark and thin branches. What is the saying of neighbor's father in Mending Wall? Good fences make good neighbors. Who is the hired man? Silas is the hired man. What are the paintings mentioned in the poem Newsday Boxer? The Fall of Icarus, the numbering at Bethlehem, winter landscape with scouters and a bird trap and massacre of the innocents. In what sense does grass symbolize democracy? The grass knows no discrimination by growing at all places in broad as well as narrow zones, among black and also among white people. Thus it symbolizes democracy. Where and when does Whitman behold God? Whitman feels the presence of God everywhere, each hour in the 24 and each moment. What is Byzantium? Byzantium was the old name of Constantinople or Istanbul, the capital of the eastern wing of the Holy Roman Empire. It was an ideal place of art, culture, and wisdom. What is the theme of the poem September 1913? September 1913 is an expression of the poet's anger and bitterness at the stupidity, meanness, and pettiness of the Irish people, and his tribute to the Irish patriot O'Leary, who died in 1907. What kind of poem is Mending Wall? Mending Wall is a dramatic lyric or dramatic monologue. What does the wall symbolize in Mending Wall? The wall in Mending Wall symbolizes all kinds of man-made barriers and divisions between individuals, nations, classes and caste, economic, radical, and religions group and the like. How does Mary define a home? According to Mary, home is a place where one does not have to justify oneself as in the outside world, but where one is accepted lovingly for what one is. In other words, everyone needs at least one place of refuge where the demons of justice are tempered with a spirit of charity. Who was Achilles? Achilles in Greek mythology is the son of the mortal Peleus and the divine sea nymph Thetis from Pythia in Thessaly. In Homer's Iliad, he is the leader of the Myrmidons and the chief Greek hero in the war against Troy. His anger drives the story of the Iliad forward. When was Seamus Heaney awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature? In recognition of his literary genius, Seamus Heaney was awarded the prestigious Nobel Prize for Literature in 1995. To which is life compared in Breeches? In Breeches, life has been compared to a pathless wood. What kind of poem is In Memory of W.B. Yeats? In Memory of W.B. Yeats is an unconventional elegy in which the poet does not express his grief so much as he records the facts of Yeats' death in a cool and detached manner. What is the message of the poem Casualty? The message of the poem Casualty is that the dead fisherman knew the solution to the problems of Ireland. He moved about his business quietly with absolute freedom. What is the poem No Second Troy about? No Second Troy is about Maud Gonne, the nationalist Irish politician with whom Yeats fell in love. The poem is partly a tribute to Maud Gonne and partly a criticism of her. In what respect is Maud Gonne compared with Helen? Maud Gonne resembled Helen in classical beauty. She had finely chiseled features, and her personality was high and solitary and most stern, like that on Helen. What is Byzantium? Byzantium was the old name of Constantinople or Istanbul, the capital of the eastern wings of the Holy Roman Empire. It was an ideal place of art, culture, and wisdom. What does the wall symbolize in Frost Mending Wall? The wall in Mending Wall symbolizes all kinds of man-made barriers and divisions between individual nation classes and caste, economic, racial and religious groups and the like. How does Heaney criticize the role of his society in Casualty? The poet criticizes the role of his society, saying that people obeyed the unofficial dictate from the IRA that they stay indoors. What does Odin mean by supernatural sympathy? The phrase supernatural sympathy means the blessing of Venus, the goddess of love and beauty. This means the lover's carnal love is raised to a mystical height in which they feel as if they are in common with the supernatural being. What made Dylan Thomas a poet? Dylan Thomas thinks that his love for his aunt The hard death and writing an elegy in memory of her have made him a poet in real sense. What does the little lullaby signify? Lullaby is a song for lulling a baby to sleep. As the title indicates, it is a song of the poet to send his beloved to sleep with her head on his arm. What is surrealism? Surrealism is a 20th century avant-garde movement in art and literature that sought to realize the creative potential of an unconscious mind. For example, by the irrational juxtaposition of images. What is the central theme in the poem in October? The central theme of the poem is the remembered childhood. What is the basic symbol in the poem Song of Myself? The I in the basis symbol of Song of Myself, it stands not only for the historical Whitman, for an individual with a distinct personality, but also for the average American, the modern democratic man. Whom does W.B. Yeats address in When You Were Old? The poem When You Were Old is addressed to Maud Gonne, with whom Yeats was passionately in love, but who never responded to his love. What is Song of Myself? Song of Myself is a poem composed by Walt Whitman. What is the meaning of the word "and" must say? The literal meaning of the word is all together as a group, but to Whitman it signifies democracy, the concept of equality and brotherhood. In what sense was W.B. Yeats called the national poet of Ireland? By his birth and temperament, by the accident of his upbringing, and also by deliberate choice, W.B. Yeats was the poet of the Irish tradition. That is why he was called the national poet of Ireland. What do you mean by Plato's? According to Plato's parable, man and woman were originally united in a single composite body and later separated. The expression here refers to the oneness of the two hearts. How many times was Frost awarded the Pulitzer Prize? Robert Frost was awarded the Pulitzer Prize for poetry 4 times. 1924, 1931, 1937 এবং 1919. What is the moral of the poem Mowing? The moral of the poem Mowing is that real life with all its hard labor can give greater pleasure than all fanciful dreams of man. Why does the poet lover call his beloved human? Auden does not glorify his beloved as a goddess, as in conventional love poetry, but knows that she is a human being with all human imperfections. Thus, Auden's attitude to love is realistic. What is the underlying meaning of a voice without a face? With a voice without a face. The voice without a face refers to the dictators or military commanders who speak to the people over radio or on the loudspeaker. Only their voice is heard, but the face is not seen. What was Dylan's second name? Dylan Thomas's second name was Marlaise, which means the voice of the sea. What kind of poem is After the Funeral? After the Funeral is an elegy written in memory of Anne Jones, the poet's maternal aunt who died in 1933. What is the theme of the poem Flower? Flower deals with the theme of the parent-child relationship in which there is always a leader and a follower. With the speaker in the poem Requiem for the Corpus, the narrator in the poem Requiem for the Croppies is one of the rebels who fought against the English at the Battle of Vinegar Hill in 1798. Who was Achilles' mother? Thetis was Achilles' mother. How does an old man define law in Law Like Love? An old man defines law as collected wisdom. Where was the narrator walking in As I Walk Out one evening? The narrator was walking along Bristol Street. How did Bonhoeffer die in Friday's Child? He was executed by hanging for his participation in a plot of the German military intelligence office to assassinate Adolf Hitler. Why did the speaker want to protect his son in a prayer for my son? The speaker calls on a ghost to stand over his son, Michael, so that he may sleep well, and so that his mother may sleep well too. Who is Leda? Leda is a figure from Greek mythology who was famously seduced by Zeus when he took the form of a swan. Name the Greek personalities mentioned in Among School Children. Plato, Aristotle, Among Pythagoras. Why did the wife went to leave the house in home burial? Because she wants to escape the confines of the house. What does the act of apple picking symbolize in After Apple Picking? The apples represent things he has done in life, and the act of apple picking represents living and doing those things. What is the similarity between fire and ice as you find in Fire and Ice? Both of them are destructive. How does the narrator in Song of Myself begin his journey? He begins his journey hoping to cease not till death. What does the title The Shield of Achilles refer to? The Shield of Achilles was especially made for him by Hephaestus, the blacksmith of the gods. Auden has referred to the shield in terms of a symbol. It symbolizes art or image of a human condition in the contemporary world. What does the little lullaby signify? Lullaby is a song for lulling a baby to sleep. As the title indicates, it is a song of the poet to send his beloved to sleep with her head on his arm. What is the meaning of green age? By green age, the poet means boyhood or the youthful period of life. What is the nationality of W.B. Yeats? W.B. Yeats is an Irish poet. How many sections are there in Song of Myself? There are 52 sections in Song of Myself. Why is Maud Gonne compared with Helen? Yeats tries to create a parallel between Helen of Troy and Montgomery. Like Helen, he blames Maud for filing Irishment with hatred and violence and causing bloodshed and destruction. What is the central of the poem Moving? The central theme of the poem is the vision of New England. What type of poem in memory of W.B. Yeats? In memory of W.B. Yeats is an unconventional elegy in which the poet records the facts of Yeats' death in a cool and detached manner. What does the wall stand for in Mending Wall? The wall stands for barriers. What is Spiritus Mundi? Spiritus Mundi is a Latin term that means world spirit. According to Yeats, it is universal memory and muse that provides inspiration to the poet. Whom does Achilles refer to? Achilles refers to the modern man who is unable to exist in a world of cruelty, violence, and cowardice. In what sense does grass symbolize democracy? The grass knows no discrimination by growing at all places, in bold as well as narrow zones, among black and also among white people. Thus, it symbolizes democracy. What does Whitman believe as a Democrat? As a Democrat, Whitman believes in the inherent dignity and equality of all men. What is IRB? The IRB refers to the Secret Extremist Revolutionary Party, Irish Republican Brotherhood. Yeats joined the party in 1896. What is Byzantium? Byzantium was the old name of Constantinople or Istanbul, the capital of the eastern wing to the Holy Roman Empire. It was an ideal place of art, culture, and wisdom. When did Yeats receive the Nobel Prize? W.B. Yeats received the Nobel Prize for Literature in December 1923. What kind of poem is Moving? Moving is a sonnet which reads like a lyric to which is life compared in Birches. In Birches, life has been compared to a pathless wood. What is the name of the wife in the poem Home Burial? Amy is the name of the wife of Home Burial. She is very sensitive and sick at heart over her child's death and misunderstands her husband for digging himself his grave and burying him there. What does quicksand symbolize? Quicksand is the loose watery sand which engulfs those who happen to walk over it. It is a symbol of destruction in nature. What is the basic symbol in the poem Song of Myself? The I is the basic symbol in Song of Myself. It stands not only for historical Whitman for an individual with a distinct personality, but also for the average American, the modern democratic man. What do you mean by the pilgrim soul? The pilgrim soul refers to a pure soul that comes to earth through human body only to undertake a very short holy journey. Who is Amy? Amy is the name of the wife of Home Burial. She is very sensitive and sick at heart over her child's death and misunderstands her husband for digging himself his grave and buying him and burying him there. What does Whitman believe as a Democrat? As a Democrat, Whitman believes in the inherent dignity and equality of all men. What is the basis of Yeats' criticism of Montgomery? Yeats' criticism of Montgomery is based partly on her callousness towards him and partly on her political postures and the revolutionary violence that she has shown to the ignorant masses of Ireland for the freedom of their motherland. What does the poet mean by Leyden body? Leda was the mother of Helen, the most beautiful woman of Greek mythology. Her Leidian body refers to the beautiful figure of Montgomery, who resembles Leda or Helen in her beauty. What is Byzantium? Byzantium was the old name of Constantinople or Istanbul, the capital of the eastern wing of the Holy Roman Empire. It was an ideal place of art, culture, and wisdom. What is the meaning of Gyres? Gyre is the increasing spiral that can be traced conically starting from a point and eventually expanding to a circle. What kind of poem is The Death of the Hired Man? The Death of the Hired Man is a dramatic lyric. How does Mary define a home? According to Mary, home is a place where one does not have to justify oneself as in the outside world, but where one is accepted lovingly for what one is. In other words, everyone needs at least one place of refuge where the demands of justice are tempered with a spirit of charity. What is the theme of the poem The Road Not Taken? The theme of the poem The Road Not Taken is the problem of making a choice in life. What is Gion? Gion means Jewish. It is also the name of a small hill in Jerusalem, the sacred city of the Jews. Who was Miss Walls? Miss Walls was a school teacher teaching the children about the frog's reproduction system and also explained that frogs change color with the weather. How does Mary define a home? According to Mary, home is a place where one does not have to justify oneself as in the outside world, but where one is accepted lovingly for what one is. What is the significance of the title Out Out? The title Out Out has been taken from Shakespeare's Macbeth, in which Macbeth's soliloquy is Out Out Brief Candle. The title is incomplete as indicated by the dash, and in its incompleteness it suggests the many expressions that break the flow of sentence and words. What does the spear of grass symbolize? The spear of grass symbolizes the procreant power of nature, the creative urge that is at work through all nature. How, according to Whitman, can true knowledge and wisdom be acquired? According to Whitman, true knowledge and wisdom can be acquired through communion with nature. To whom is the poem When You Were Old addressed? The poem When You Were Old is addressed to Maud Gonne, with whom Yeats was passionately in love, but who never responded to his love. What is the theme of the poem A Prayer for My Daughter? The poet's anxiety as to how to protect his infant child from the tide of hard times ahead and his prayer for her future prosperity and well-being constitute to them of the poem A Prayer for My Daughter. What is the moral of the poem Moving? The moral of the poem Moving is that real life with all its hard labor can give greater pleasure than all fanciful dreams of man. What is the problem of the mother in home burial? The overwrought, excited mother cannot forget that her husband himself dug the grave of their only child in their little graveyard and himself buried him there. What kind of poem is In Memory of W.B. Yeats? In Memory of W.B. Yeats is an unconventional elegy in which the poet does not express his grief so much as he records the facts of Yeats' death in a cool and detached manner. What does the poet mean by Irish vessel? By Irish vessel, the poet means W.B. Yeats, who is an Irishman. Yeats is being compared to a vessel which in life was full of poetry, of which it has been appetite in death. What kind of poem is After the Funeral? After the Funeral is an elegy written in memory of Anne Jones, the poet's maternal aunt, who died in 1933. What are stuffed fox and state fern? The stuffed fox and stale fern refer to various articles of decoration in Aunt John's room where the poet is left alone. What was Heeny's father? Seamus Heaney's father was a farmer, and so much of the raw material for his poetry stems for the farm and the countryside around the farm where he spent his early life. What is the theme of the poem Digging? The poem Digging states the poet's choice of a character to dig up the perfect words with his pen in his quest for literary achievement in imitation of his forefather who were digging their lands with a spade. What is Walt Whitman's idea of the leaf of grass? The leaves of grass highlights the beauty of the individual. Each leaf or blade of grass possesses its own distinct beauty, and together the blades form a beautiful unified whole. An idea Whitman explores in the sixth section of Song of Myself. Multiple leaves of grass thus symbolize democracy. Another instant of a beautiful whole composed of individual parts. What is the nationality of W.B. Yeats? W.B. Yeats is an Irish poet. What is the Maud Gonye compared with Help? Maud Gonye resembled Helen in classical beauty. She had finely chiseled features and her personality was high and solidarity and most stern like that of Helen. How many sections are there in Song of Myself? There are 52 sections in Song of Myself. What is the central theme of the poem Moving? The central theme of the poem is the vision of New England. What type of poem is In Memory of W.B. Yeats? In Memory of W.B. Yeats is an unconventional elegy in which the poet does not express his grief so much as he records the facts of Yeats' death in a cool and detached manner. What does the wall stand for in Mending Wall? The wall stands for Berries. Whom does Achilles refer to? Achilles refer to modern man who is unable to exist in a world of cruelty, violence and cowardice. What is spirits Mindy? It refers to the collective spirits of mankind. What is lullaby? Lullaby is a love poem spoken to someone who is sleeping. What is the theme of the poem Digging? The poem Digging states the poet's choice of a career to dig up the perfect words with his pen in his quest for literary achievement in imitation of his forefather who were digging their lands with a spade. Who is Clyde? Uttar Devanai. What was the subtitle of September 1913? September 1913 had originally the subtitle as on reading much of the correspondence against the art gallery. What is the theme of the poem The Road Not Taken? The theme of the poem The Road Not Taken is the problem of making a choice in life. What's Auden's message in Lullaby? Auden's message in Lullaby is that eros, physical love should be transformed into agape, universal love and charity, which protect mankind from moral, spiritual crises, cares, and anxieties of the world. What does the shining metal mean? The shining metal means the modern shield symbolizing art or image of human condition. What kind of poem is After the Funeral? After the Funeral is an elegy in memory of Anne Jones, the poet's maternal aunt who died in 1933. What does Achilles stand for? Achilles stands for the modern man who is unable to exist in a world of cruelty, violence, and cowardice. What does the spear of grass symbolize? The spear of grass symbolizes the proscribed power of nature, the creative urge that is at work through all nature. When does Whitman behold God? Whitman feels the presence of God everywhere, each hour of 24 and each moment. What is the theme of the poem September 1913? September 1913 is an expression of the poet's anger and bitterness at the stupidity, meanness and pettiness of the Irish people and his tribute to the Irish patriot O'Lory who died in 1907. What request does the bay make to his sister is out. The boy is still a child at heart and so he cries to his sister not to let the doctor cut off his hand. What does the girl in the poem Punishment symbolize? The girl in the poem Punishment symbolizes Ireland as she, like Ireland, was murdered at the hand of a group of oppressors. What does the golden bird symbolize? The golden bird symbolizes a liberated soul which neither undergoes any changes nor suffers from any conflict and confusion of which human beings are victims. What does the spear of grass symbolize? The spear of grass symbolizes the procreant power of nature, the creative urge that is at work through all nature. What is the theme of the poem September 1913? September 1913 is an expression of the poet's anger and bitterness at the stupidity, meanness, and pettiness of the Irish people, and his tribute to Irish patriot O'Leary, who died in 1907. Where and when does Whitman behold God? Whitman feels the presence of God everywhere, each hour of the 24 and each moment. What is the theme of the poem The Road Not Taken? The theme of the poem The Road Not Taken is the problem of making a choice in life. What kind of poem is After the Funeral? After the Funeral is an elegy written in memory of Anne Jones, the poet's maternal aunt who died in 1933. What was the subtitle of September 1913? September 1913 had originally the subtitle as On Reading Much of the Correspondence Against the Art Gallery. What does Achilles stand for? Achilles stands for the modern man who is unable to exist in a world of cruelty, violence, and cowardice. What does the wall symbolize in the Mending Wall? The wall in Mending Wall symbolizes all kinds of man-made barriers and divisions between individuals, nations, classes, and caste, economic, racial, and religious groups, and the like. What request does the boy make to his sister in the poem Out Out? The boy is still a child at heart, and so he cries to his sister not to let the doctor cut off his hand. When did Yeats receive the Nobel Prize for Literature? W.B. Yeats received the Nobel Prize for Literature in December 1923. What is Whitman's idea of eternity? Whitman says that the clock indicates the passing of moments, but time is eternal. It has continued through trillions and trillions of years and will continue for trillions of years more. None can visualize the beginning or the end of time. What is the poet's fancy in building a memorial for his aunt? The poet fancies that he stands alone in the best room of his aunt's house for the sake of building a memorial through the passage of his elegy. What is Song of Myself? Song of Myself is a poem by Walt Whitman that is included in his work Leaves of Grass. It has been credited as representing the core of Whitman's poetic vision. What is Whitman's idea of eternity? Whitman says that the clock indicates the passing of moments, but time is eternal. It has continued through trillion and trillion of years and will continue for trillions of years more. None can visualize the beginning or the end of time. What request does the boy make to his sister in Out Out? The boy is still a child at heart, so he cries to his sister not to let the doctor cut off his hand. What kind of apples are sent for making cider? The apples that fell to the ground were sent as discards to the pile to be used for making cider. Who is Miss Wall? Miss Walls was the school teacher teaching the children about the frog reproduction system and also explained that frogs change color with the weather. What is the theme of the poem Digging? The poem Digging states that poet's choice of a career to dig up the perfect words with his pen in his quest for literary achievement in imitation of his forefathers who were digging their land with a spade. What is the theme of the poem Death of a Neutralist? The poem Death of a Neutralist deals with the theme of the loss of childhood innocence in the initiation into adulthood. What is the theme of the poem The Circus Animals Desertion? The circus animals' desertions deal with the theme of the exploration of the nature of poetic imagination. What proves the child to be ephemeral? According to the poet, the grave proves the fact that the child is ephemeral. In other words, human life is short and it ends with the grave. What is intellectual disgrace? Intellectual disgrace refers to people's hatred of one another because of the hostile feelings and atmosphere created by ideological indifference and conflicts. Which country was Dylan Thomas born in? Dylan Thomas was born at home in the Uplands district of Swansea, Wales on October 27, 1914. Who does Dylan Thomas write for? Mackerel is a migratory surface-dwelling predatory fish, commercially important as a food fish. What does the sphere of glass symbolize? The sphere of glass symbolizes the procreant power of nature, the creative urge that is at work through all nature. Now, according to which man can a man be a hero? According to Whitman, a man can be a hero not by starting a business or holding a big office, but by having sympathetic attitude in life because the whole of the world functions on the wheel of sympathy. How does Yeats pay tribute to O'Leary? W.B. Yeats felt a deep respect for O'Leary. He pays tribute to him saying, Romantic Ireland's dead and gone, it's with O'Leary in the grave. What is Byzantium? Byzantium was the old name of Constantinople or Istanbul, the capital of the eastern wing of the Holy Roman Empire. It was an ideal place of art, culture, and wisdom. Why, according to Yeats, is art useful? Art, according to Yeats, is useful and helpful even under the shadow of tragedy because art generates the quality of self-control. What is the moral of poem Moving? The moral of the poem Moving is a real life with all its hard labor can give greater pleasures than all fanciful dreams of man. What philosophy of life does Frost give through his poem After Apple Picking? Frost holds the opinion that the sleep of the apple picker is not after apple picking in the sense that the man must rise again to complete his task, but it is after apple picking in the sense that, like Adam and Eve, the man must continue to work in his life. Why does the poet lover call his beloved human? Odin does not glorify his beloved as a goddess, as in conventional love poetry, but knows that she is a human being with all human imperfections. Thus, Odin's attitude to love is realistic. What is intellectual disgrace? Intellectual disgrace refers to people's hatred of one another because of the hostile feelings and atmosphere created by ideological indifference and conflicts, who, according to Odin, die immorally. Odin thinks that people who fail to oppose the cruelty of the despotic rulers face the worst of all disgraces and humiliation, and they die morally because of their cowardice before they are physically dead. What kind of poem is After the Funeral? After the Funeral is an elegy written in memory of Anne Jones, the poet maternal aunt who died in 1933. What was the nightmarish vision of the little children? The image of the great slim kings bent on vengeance, and the crouching frog-spawn created a nightmarish vision for the little child. What does the spear of grass symbolize? The spear of grass symbolizes the procreant power of nature, the creative urge that is at work through all nature. What is the moral of the poem Moving? The moral of the poem Moving is that real life, with all its hard labor, can give greater pleasure than all fanciful dreams of man. Who was Achilles? Achilles in Greek mythology is the son of the mortal Peleus and the divine sea nymph Thetis from Pythia in Thessaly. In Homer's Iliad, he is the leader of the Myrmidons and the chief Greek hero in the war against Troy. His anger drives the story of the Iliad forward. What do you mean by the pilgrim soul? The pilgrim soul refers to a pure soul that comes to earth through human body only to undertake a very short holy journey. What is surrealism? Surrealism is a style in art and literature in which ideas, images, and objects are combined in a strange way, like in a dream. What does the title of Shield of Achilles refer to? The Shield of Achilles was especially made for him by Hephaestus, the blacksmith of the gods. Odin has referred to the shield in terms of a symbol. It symbolizes art or image of the human condition in the contemporary world. What is the central theme of the poem, The Death of a Hired Man? The central theme of the poem is the transformation of the husband's stubborn and impatient prejudice through the deliberate and gentle persuasiveness of the wife. What is Whitman's idea of eternity? Whitman says that the clock indicates the passing of moments, but time is eternal. It has continued through trillions and trillions of years and will continue for trillions of years more. None can visualize the beginning or the end of time. What kind of beauty, according to Yeats, does Maud Gonne possess? Maud Gonne's beauty is compared to a tightened bow, suggesting that her devotion to the cause of the people was intense, and it naturally issued forth in violent activity, as does an arrow from the bow. What is Byzantium? Byzantium was the old name of Constantinople or Istanbul, the capital of the earnest wing of the Holy Roman Empire. It was an ideal place of art culture. What is the issue of quarrel between the two neighbors in Mending Wall? The speaker and his neighbor get together every spring to repair the stone wall between their respective properties, and this issue leads to a quarrel between them. How does Warren define a home? Warren defines home as a place where one is forced to meet an obligation, no matter how unwillingly. It is not a place where one has a sense of love and companionship. Whom does W.B. Yeats address in When You Are Old? The poem When You Are Old is addressed to Maud Gonne, with whom Yeats was passionately in love, but who never responds to his love. Who were the leaders in the uprising in Easter 1960? Patrick Pearse, Thomas MacDonagh, Major MacBride, and James Connolly. What does the wall stand for in the Mending Wall? The wall stands for burials. What happens in the poem Out? A young boy's hand has been cut off by a buzzsaw. What is a birch? A tree with smooth, often white bark and thin branches. What is a shank? To an Irishman like Henny, the shank is quite an exotic and glamorous culture, although it would be a common sight of California. What is the theme of the poem Digging? The poem Digging states the poet's choice of a career to dig up a perfect words with his pen in his quest for literary achievement in imitation of his forefathers who were digging their lives. Of speech, part or অংশ এবং speech অর্থ বাক্য বা কথা